The fork never touches my plate. It just hovers there, catching the kitchen light, as my father says the words that split the room in two. The house smells like roasted chicken and rosemary, but my mouth goes dry. Maline's art portfolio rests on the sideboard, a leather case polished with the same care my mother used to reserve for holiday silver. Somewhere on the stove, a timer ticks over and forgets to ring. All of it my father repeats, setting his fork down so softly the china barely whispers. Tuition housing supplies. We're fully funding Maline. The air thins like someone has closed a window I didn't know was open. My mother's hand finds Maline's and presses her wedding band, tapping once against the tabletop one bright, tiny sound that says everything. And me, I hear my voice and don't recognize it. It's as careful as a glass held over tile. Before I go on, tell me where you're listening from down in the comments, and if you've ever had to pretend something didn't hurt while it was breaking your heart. Tap the like button and share this with someone who'll understand. Make sure you're subscribed so you never miss the next chapter, because this one doesn't end where you think. But to understand how that dinner changed everything, you need to know where the light started to dim. I grew up in a 4-bedroom colonial outside Boston, the kind of house with an oak dining table that remembers birthdays and winter homework. My father, Thomas, left each morning with the same travel mug and the same promise: do the work, and life does the rest. My mother, Helen, taught 4th grade and baked on Saturdays banana bread that warmed the whole place in January. When we were little, the rules felt even and simple. I lined up my crayons by color and finished worksheets before cartoons. Maline left glitter in every room and laughed when the dog tracked it through the hall. 2 daughters, different gears, equal places at the table. The first tilt was small enough to excuse. Maline won a middle school art prize for a watercolor of Cape Cod, a sky so soft you could almost hear the gulls. Her art teacher called her a prodigy, and the word stuck to the refrigerator like a magnet. Private lessons started. Then, special pencils that came in thin metal tins. My mother began greeting visitors by pointing to the hallway wall covered in Maline's work, as if it were a gallery. My report card straight A's lined up like good soldiers moved from the center of the fridge to the side where you glance if you're already looking. By 16, I had learned the quiet choreography of being fine. I asked for a laptop to keep up with AP coursework. I unwrapped a calculator and a sweater. 2 months later, on Maline's 14th, she received a professional art tablet I couldn't afford to even hold. Christmas came with tiny differences that weren't tiny at all. Studio lights for her workspace, a stack of art books that made our coffee table sag while I folded a gift card into my wallet and told myself it was practical. I babysat, I tutored, I saved. 8 months later, I bought my own laptop on a Tuesday afternoon and carried it home like a secret. When graduation came, I stood in a white robe under buzzing gym lights and found my father in the crowd checking his watch. My mother had taken Maline to a regional art exhibition. I told myself the thing I always told myself: this is temporary. College letters in thick envelopes would change the math. They arrived like spring birds Northwestern Boston University Cornell, with merit awards that covered almost half the tuition. I spread them across the oak table, the paper edges catching a square of afternoon sun, and I felt a door swing open. Maline's envelopes were thinner and fewer solid programs for a gifted artist with average grades. I believed that night would be a celebration of 2 good girls going 2 good ways. My father cleared his throat and slid the chicken platter aside, making room for an explanation. "We've been saving for college since you were born," he began, voice gentle, "and we've made a decision about how to allocate those funds." My mother laced her fingers with Maline's. "Art has windows," she said not unkindly. "She needs specialized training now while the opportunities are alive." I nodded, already preparing to be the reasonable one, ready to make the numbers work with a little tilt in my sister's favor. "We've decided to fully fund Malene," my father said, and the word fully spread like cold across the table. The house was so quiet I could hear the clock above the sink. "And me?" I asked, "the way you tap a floorboard to test if it will hold you." My mother's face softened the way teachers do before hard news. "Lauren, you're capable," she said, and there was pride in it, but also a door closing. "You have scholarships. You work hard. You'll find a way." My father nodded. "You always do." I waited for the rest, the part where they would say my name with the same certainty, but it didn't come. Why? It slipped out smaller than I meant. My father let out a breath like I'd asked something impolite. "We have limited resources," he said, as if we were talking about snow shovels. "We need to make smart investments. Malene's gift needs nurturing. You'll succeed regardless." My mother stroked Malene's knuckles with her thumb. "She deserves it," she said, looking at me and you. "Don't need it the same way." The room tipped. The oak table, the old curtains, the light over the sink, they all stayed, but something in me slid slow and final. I excused myself, walked down the hall, past the wedding photos, and closed the bathroom door. The mirror caught me at the sink, a girl who looked composed and not at all steady. Behind the shower curtain, the bathtub held a basket of eucalyptus soaps for guests. I wanted to climb inside and hide under the scent of something that pretends to heal. Here is what I did instead. I sat on the closed toilet lid, took out my phone, and opened my bank app. Then I did the math out loud, the way I do when I need to feel my own voice. 40% covered. The rest is rent, food, books, transit. 3 jobs, 6 hours of sleep if I'm lucky. I made a list that didn't judge me for making it. If this is where you've been left standing near a sink in a quiet room working the math of your own worth, know this: your dignity is not a negotiable line item. It's yours even when no one writes a check for it. When I came back to the table, Malene's face held something like apology. "I didn't ask for this," she whispered. Shoulders rounded the way good people fold themselves to disappear. I can tell them I shook my head. I would not let my sister carry my parents' choices. "This isn't yours to fix," I told her, and watched relief and sorrow trade places in her eyes. The weeks that followed felt like walking at night. You can't see far, but you learn where your feet are. I told Northwestern and Cornell thank you and no. Boston University made the most sense: commuter trains, a partial scholarship, a city I'd already mapped in my mind from unpaid internships and long bus rides. I found a studio apartment 40 minutes from campus with a shared bathroom down the hall and a radiator that clanked like an old man clearing his throat. The landlord slid the lease across a chipped desk and watched my hands shake, not from doubt, but from the coffee I'd used to skip lunch. Move-in day came with August heat and the smell of hot asphalt rising off the street. I made 3 subway trips with my belongings: a mattress, rolled like a giant cinnamon bun, 2 boxes of textbooks, a hand-me-down lamp that leaned a little left. Down the road on the same afternoon, my parents were hanging string lights in Malene's dorm and sticking a new mini fridge under her loft bed, my mother's laugh bright as a spoon on glass. I texted a photo of my key on my palm anyway. "Proud of you," my mother replied with 3 sparkles. My father liked the message and sent a thumbs up. I saved their words in a folder called Nice Things, then put the phone face down and opened my secondhand textbooks. At night, the radiator clanged, and the neighbor down the hall played the same country song on a loop. I learned the schedule of the city, the early bus that smells like raincoats in October, the way the library light comes on just before dawn, the color the river turns under the first snow. I made a routine out of tight corners, 6 to 9 at the university library, reshelving returns classes until afternoon tutoring between lectures for students who needed statistics explained in regular English, then waitressing at a diner that always smelled like coffee and fryer oil. I washed my uniforms in warm water on Sundays, hung them on a line across the bathroom, and called the damp clean. My parents kept to the script they'd written. They visited once a month to take Malene to dinner, their heads bent over her latest project, their voices floating over the table like a song I didn't know how to sing. Sometimes they texted to invite me. Sometimes I went and ordered a side salad and smiled at the right places. When the check came, my father would say, "We've got it," and for a second it almost felt like love, until you remembered love doesn't itemize. The body keeps score before the heart admits there's a game. By midterms, I'd lost 15 pounds I didn't have, and tremors showed up in my hands like uninvited guests. I rationed sleep like rent money. I learned how to cry without making a sound in a bathroom stall between lectures. When pneumonia finally knocked me off my feet, I lay on my studio floor and counted ceiling cracks to keep from counting the hours I couldn't work. The University Health Center called it exhaustion with a name. I called my parents because that's what you do when the ground goes out. "We just covered supplies for Malene's senior showcase," my mother said, voice clipped with regret. "We don't have extra right now." I thanked her and hung up and stared at the bracelet of light on the wall thrown there by the gap in the blinds. But that is part two's weather heavy and cold, and everywhere at once. This is still part one, where the decision is fresh and the echo hasn't faded. It ends where the night begins to clear and the mind makes a new map. On a late winter evening, back when it all first broke, I took every acceptance letter out of my desk drawer and spread them across the oak table. Once more. The same table, the same wood grain, the same house that had taught me to chew quietly and not spill. The dining room was empty, except for the hum of the refrigerator and the soft knock of branches against the window. I lined the letters up like runway lights and watched how far the glow reached. Then I did what my father always said life does for you if you do the work. I chose. I folded 2 letters I could not afford, slid them back into their envelopes, and set my palm on the one that would keep me within train distance of a promise I intended to keep to myself. In the hall, the thermostat clicked. Upstairs, my mother's footsteps crossed the landing. Somewhere outside, a porch light blinked on against a slow-falling snow. I tucked the chosen letter under my arm and reached for my coat, already feeling winter's breath along the doorframe. By morning, I would be in a different kind of silence, the kind you enter alone and leave only if you learn how. And that is where the next part begins. The radiator clicks once before the heat gives up for the night. I sit on the edge of my bed, wrapped in 2 sweaters, watching the city lights flicker through thin curtains. Boston hums outside my window cars, sighing past footsteps in the hall pipes settling. I'm 20 miles from everything that used to define me and still close enough to feel it breathing down my neck. The acceptance letter from Boston University lies folded in my drawer like a quiet pact I made with myself. If they wouldn't invest in me, I'd learn how to multiply on my own. The first semester passes in a blur of long days and longer nights. I learn that exhaustion has a sound. It hums behind the ears like static. Most mornings start before sunrise. I pull my hair into a braid, walk 2 blocks to the bus stop with coffee in a paper cup, and reach the campus library by 6. The building smells like old paper and disinfectant. My shift begins with a key turning in the staff door and the sound of books sliding back into place. When the doors open to students, I switch to quiet smiles and small gestures. It's easy to be invisible when you keep everything organized. Classes fill the middle hours and the diner fills the night. Joe's sits at the corner of Tremont and Bay State, a greasy window and a brass bell that doesn't always ring. By evening, I trade my campus badge for an apron, tying it tight around my waist. The rhythm there is simple. Pour coffee balance plates smile through aching feet. The regulars know my name, but not my story. They tip in crumpled bills and half-finished advice. I listen, nod, and keep moving. Between shifts, I tutor high school students in algebra and SAT prep. trying to stretch each dollar across rent books and the next meal. Sleep becomes something I visit, not live inside. By midterms, my mirror shows a thinner version of me, eyes ringed in shadows, hands trembling when I write too long. I tell myself it's just the season. Hard work pays off. That's what my father always said. But hard work without rest doesn't build, it erodes. By winter, I start forgetting small things, keys on the counter, a sentence halfway through, whether I ate breakfast at all. The human body has limits, but pride doesn't like to hear that. Maline's life moves in another rhythm entirely. I see it through her photos, online studio spaces bathed in perfect light, friends with paint on their sleeves, late-night coffee runs, and campus events. Our parents visit, often smiling in snapshots beside her exhibitions. My phone lights up with their group messages. We're so proud of Maline's progress. Wish you could join us? I reply with short congratulations, then slip the phone away before resentment settles in. I know it's not Maline's fault, but the hurt doesn't always listen to reason. The night my body finally gives out, I'm shelving returns at the library. The room tilts slightly, then all at once. I remember trying to reach for a shelf that wouldn't stay still. The smell of dust, a flash of fluorescent light. When I wake, the world has softened around the edges. There's a white ceiling, a steady beeping sound, and a nurse adjusting an IV. Pneumonia, they say. Severe exhaustion. Dehydration. I nod, though the words blur together. The nurse's badge reads Cynthia. She tells me someone from the library found me on the floor and called for help. You were lucky, she says. I smile, because luck is easier to believe than collapse. After the first day, I call home. My mother answers on the second ring, her voice lined with concern and something else distant. Oh, sweetheart, that sounds terrible, she says. But we just covered Maline's tuition this week, and your father's been helping her with supplies for her senior showcase. Can you manage until next month? I stare at the hospital wall, pale as the space between us. I'll manage, I say, because that's what I've always done. When the call ends, I let the phone fall onto the blanket and close my eyes. It's not anger that fills me, just a kind of tired so deep it doesn't have words. That's when Alicia appears in my life. She lives 2 doors down in the same building, a nursing student with warm eyes and a laugh that carries through the thin walls. I wake one morning to the smell of soup simmering in a small pot. She knocks softly before stepping inside. You look like you haven't eaten in days, she says, setting down a tray. I try to protest, but she waves me quiet. Let someone take care of you for once. The broth is simple chicken rice bits of carrot, but it tastes like kindness. For the first time in weeks, I cry without hiding it. When I'm strong enough to return to class, my professor, Dr. Jenkins, emails me. He's noticed my absence. His office smells faintly of coffee and old computers. He leans back in his chair and studies me with a kind of patience I'm not used to. You look like someone who's been carrying more than books, he says. I want to laugh, but it catches in my throat. The words spill before I can stop them. The jobs, the rent, the way my parents see me as self-sufficient instead of deserving. He listens without interrupting. When I finish, he nods slowly. You're doing everything right, but you can't do it all alone. He offers to connect me with a graduate assistant, Tyler Brooks, who needs help grading assignments. It pays better than reshelving books, he adds, sliding a small card across the desk. And it's in your field. Tyler meets me the next day in the computer lab. He's tall, soft-spoken, the kind of person who looks you in the eye and means it. We talk about the work, but somehow the conversation widens to late-night study sessions, shared frustration over broken printers, the quiet ways people survive. He doesn't treat my exhaustion as weakness, just proof of how much I've endured. When I stumble over the idea of taking any help, he smiles gently. Even engines need fuel, he says. You're allowed to rest. The new job changes more than my paycheck. For the first time, I spend my days doing something that builds toward the future I actually want. Tyler and I grade papers side by side, trading small jokes and quiet stories. Some evenings we walk across campus to the diner for coffee, sitting in the corner booth I used to clean after closing. He doesn't push me to talk about my family, but when I do, he listens in a way that doesn't make me feel foolish. I start sleeping more, eating better, noticing how the light falls differently through my window in the mornings. Still, the distance from my parents grows wider with every unanswered call. They keep Malene at the center of their orbit, her exhibitions, her professors, her travel plans. I've stopped expecting them to ask about mine. One night, scrolling through social media after finishing a project, I see a photo of them at Malene's art gala. My mother's caption reads, "So proud of our talented girl." The words sting more than I want to admit. I close the app and open my laptop instead. If the only way to be seen is to build something visible, then that's what I'll do. It starts small, an idea I scribble on a napkin during lunch. A platform connecting students who need affordable tutoring with those who can offer it. A system for peer-to-peer learning that doesn't depend on wealth. The thought feels electric, like something finally opening inside me. I bring it to Dr. Jenkins, who introduces me to Dr. Cassandra Williams in the business department. She listens quietly, eyes bright with interest. "You've lived this problem," she says. "That gives you perspective. Apply for the innovation grant." I almost laugh. I can barely afford groceries. But she insists, helping me refine my proposal and rehearse my pitch. The grant comes through a modest $5,000, but enough to breathe. I use it to cut down my diner shifts and buy the equipment I need. For weeks, my apartment turns into a miniature lab code on the screen, coffee cups lined up like sentinels, sticky notes filling the walls. Alicia drops by with sandwiches and moral support. Tyler spends weekends debugging the prototype with me. We name it Study Connect. It's simple, clean, functional, something I wish had existed when I was drowning. When the app begins to work, I feel something shift. Not triumph exactly, but balance. Every hour I spent unseen, every night, I worked through exhaustion funnels into this single, tangible thing. Dr. Williams encourages me to enter the Northeast Collegiate Innovation Competition. I hesitate. The name alone feels too big. But she looks at me the way mentors do when they already see the ending. "Lauren, it's time people saw what you've built." The months leading up to the competition blur again. But this time, it's momentum, not survival, that fills the days. My small team, 3 students who believe in the vision, meets after hours in empty classrooms. We print flyers, test features, argue about design, and laugh over cheap takeout. The work hums with purpose, and for the first time in years, I don't feel alone. My hands still shake sometimes, but now it's from excitement, not exhaustion. When the competition finally arrives, the auditorium is packed with students in suits and judges behind long tables. My name is called near the end. I step onto the stage, the same kind of light that once felt cruel, now warm on my face. I talk about access, about working students who shouldn't have to choose between rent and tutoring. The words come steady, drawn from truth rather than polish. When the applause begins, it sounds distant at first, then grows into something full and real. That night, Dr. Williams finds me backstage. "You did it," she says, her smile quiet and proud. "You gave your struggle meaning." I think of the dinner table years ago, of my parents' words. "She deserves it, but you do not." Standing under the stage lights, I realize how wrong they were. Deserving has nothing to do with permission. It's the act of showing up again and again, even when no one claps. As I leave the building, snow begins to fall soft and soundless. The world feels lighter, though nothing outside has changed. I walk home with the cold on my cheeks and the warmth of something new in my chest. For the first time, the path ahead doesn't feel lonely. It feels earned. Spring arrives like a slow exhale after years of holding my breath. The air in Boston softens, and campus trees bloom in pale pink clouds that brush against the morning light. I walk between classes with the faint smell of tulips and new grass following me, laptop in hand, coffee cooling too quickly in the breeze. Study, connect has become more than a class project now. It's a living thing, an idea that wakes me before dawn and keeps me steady long after midnight. Every detail feels personal. The login page, the colors, the gentle way the platform guides a struggling student toward help. When I read the early feedback from test users, I can hear their relief between the lines. Finally, something affordable. I can keep my grades up without taking another loan. Each message reminds me of who I was 2 years ago. Hungry, exhausted, and alone. Maybe that's why I can't stop improving it. This isn't just software. It's a map out of the maze I had to walk blind. Our small team meets in borrowed classrooms after hours. Jackson brings his marketing charts printed on cheap paper corners curling in the heat. Priya sketches interface ideas with a pencil that never seems to dull. Devin codes in silence, his focus so complete, it feels like prayer. We work until janitors rattle keys in the door, our laughter echoing down empty halls. Dr. Williams checks on us sometimes, her coat draped over one arm and a thermos of tea in the other. Remember to breathe, she says every time, like she knows we'll forget. Tyler becomes part of the rhythm, too. He sits across from me at the diner some nights, notebook open, talking through new features while I pick at cold fries. His calm steadiness grounds me when deadlines pile up. "You're building something that matters," he says, touching the edge of my hand just enough to anchor me. "Don't let the noise drown that out." I nod, pretending to focus on the screen, though my pulse has already memorized the way he says my name. When Dr. Williams suggests entering the regional innovation competition, I almost laugh. The idea of standing on a stage in front of judges feels distant, like another lifetime. But she insists, helping us polish our pitch, revise our slides, rehearse, until our voices sound steady, even when our hearts aren't. "You have lived this problem," she reminds me. "That makes you the best one to solve it." The day of the competition dawns clear and cool. The university auditorium hums with quiet-nerved students in pressed clothes, clutching flash drives and business cards, mentors pacing at the back. Our turn comes near the end. I stand at the edge of the stage, hands slightly trembling, my throat dry despite the sip of water I just took. The microphone feels heavier than it should. When I start speaking, my voice surprises me. It's calm, certain. Study Connect was built from experience, I tell them. For every student who's worked 2 jobs to afford help, and for every tutor who's worth more than they're paid. Slides shift behind me, numbers, faces, quotes. I don't notice the judges' expressions until the applause begins. It's soft at first, then rises into something that fills the room. The rest happens fast, the announcement of first place, the handshake that feels like a promise. The envelope with a grant big enough to buy time I never thought I'd have. $25,000, and with it a meeting with investors who believe what we're building could change education itself. That night, I walk home through the city with Tyler beside me. Streetlights flicker gold across the sidewalk, and a light mist begins to fall. "You realize what this means," he says. I shrug, still half dazed. It means I can sleep for one night without worrying about next month's rent. He laughs softly. "It means you've just started something that can grow far beyond you." I stop under the awning of a closed bookstore, watching rain gather on the window. "Do you ever think," I ask quietly, that maybe the things that broke us were the same things that built us. Tyler studies me for a long moment. Maybe he says, "But I'd rather give credit to the person who kept getting back up." The following weeks turn into a whirl of meetings, signatures, and late-night planning sessions. Harold Jensen, a retired entrepreneur turned angel investor, joins us after hearing my presentation. His voice carries the calm weight of experience. "I built my first company while sweeping factory floors," he tells me. "Hard beginnings make sharp minds. You remind me of that." He invests $200,000 into Study Connect, calling it seed money for something inevitable. We rent a small office off Commonwealth Avenue, bare walls, flickering fluorescent lights, one window that sticks when it rains. It feels like a palace. We tape a whiteboard to the wall and start mapping expansion plans. Within months, the platform reaches 3 universities, then 5, then 12. User numbers double every month. Local blogs pick up our story, and a few education companies send cautious partnership emails. Each small win feels like sunlight after a long winter. Through it all, I keep the success quiet. My family still thinks I'm working part-time jobs to stay afloat. They never ask for details. Our calls are brief, polite, and mostly about Malene, her exhibitions, her professors, her art show in Florence. My mother sends me photos of their dinners, her messages filled with exclamation marks and praise for Malene's courage. I reply with short lines about staying busy, letting silence cover what words never could. There's a strange comfort in their oblivion. It's as if keeping my success hidden preserves a boundary I'm not ready to test. One evening, a dinner invitation arrives in the family group chat. My parents are visiting Boston for Malene's senior showcase and want to meet for dinner. I stare at the message for a long minute, feeling both old ache and new detachment stir inside me. I agree to come, though. I already know what the night will hold. Tyler offers to join, but I tell him it's something I need to do alone. The restaurant glows with soft amber light and smells faintly of basil and wine. My mother waves from a corner table already halfway through her glass. "Lauren," she says, standing to hug me as though the past few years were nothing but distance on a map. My father smiles, eyes crinkling with practiced warmth. "How are classes?" he asks, folding his napkin into a perfect square. "Busy," I answer, sitting across from Malene, who looks radiant and slightly nervous. They dive into talk of her showcase of professors who see real promise of the summer program she's applying to in Florence. My mother's face glows with pride. My father signals the waiter for more wine. When they finally turn to me, it's an afterthought. "And you?" my mother asks, as if fulfilling a courtesy. "You must be tired from all that work." I sip my water and nod. "I'm managing." My father smiles vaguely. "That's our Lauren. She always figures things out." Then he turns back to Malene. "Tell us about that Italian art professor again." I pick at my salad, counting the slow rhythm of my breath. Around us, laughter from other tables rises and fades. The candle between us burns low, and for the first time, I feel nothing at all. Not anger, not hurt, just distance. It's like watching a play I've already seen too many times. After dinner, outside under the awning, Malene lingers while our parents walk toward the car. "You've changed," she says, studying me. "You seem stronger." I smile faintly. "I had to be." She hesitates. "I wish they noticed how hard you work." Her words are gentle, sincere. I touch her shoulder. Maybe someday they will. But that's not why I'm doing it. She nods, understanding more than I expect, and hugs me before running to catch up with them. That night, I return to my apartment and stand by the window watching the city blur in the rain. My desk is cluttered with contracts, notebooks, and sketches of the next app update. On the screen, an email waits from EduTech Innovations, a major education company requesting a meeting to discuss a potential acquisition. I read it twice, heart steady this time. The number they mention is unreal, $3.5 million. I close my laptop slowly and press my palm against the lid, feeling the faint hum of everything that led to this moment. In the weeks that follow, negotiations consume my days. Meetings in glass offices, signatures on crisp paper, long talks with Harold about equity and ethics. Tyler keeps me anchored through it all, reminding me to breathe, to eat, to rest. When I finally agree to the terms, I make one request: the announcement must coincide with graduation day. Not for spectacle, but for symmetry. The story began with a table where I was told I wasn't worth investment. It feels right to close that circle standing on a stage of my own making. The last night before graduation, I barely sleep. My apartment is a mosaic of past and future caps and gowns hanging beside tailored clothes, old textbooks stacked under framed business documents. The radiator hums its tired song, and the city outside feels quieter than usual. I think of the girl who arrived here with a secondhand lamp and a bus schedule, who once cried over unpaid bills and cold dinners. She's still here, but she's no longer waiting for permission to feel proud. Just before dawn, I take a walk along the Charles River. The air is cool and the water mirrors the first streaks of light climbing over the skyline. I stop on the bridge, watching the ripples widen under a passing breeze. For years, I mistook being unnoticed for being unworthy. Now I understand they're not the same. Worth doesn't need applause, it only needs truth. And tomorrow, that truth will speak for itself. When I head back, the city is waking. Coffee shops open, buses hiss at the curb, and the day begins like any other. But for me, everything has shifted. The girl who once counted every dollar will walk across a stage to claim something money can't measure. The silence that once felt like punishment now feels like peace before the storm breaks in the best possible way. Morning sunlight filters through the thin curtains, laying long gold lines across my desk. The apartment smells faintly of coffee and printer ink. My cap and gown hang on the closet door, the tassel swinging with every draft that sneaks through the window. Today is graduation day. My heart beats in a rhythm I can't quite name, half steady, half thunder. Tyler stands by the kitchen counter, tying his tie in the reflection of the microwave door. "You ready?" He asks, his voice quiet but warm. I nod, though my fingers tremble slightly as I smooth the front of my gown. On the table beside me lies the confirmation email from EduTech Innovations, sealed in words that still feel too large for my hands. The acquisition contract, the press release, everything set to go live at noon right after the ceremony. For weeks I've imagined this moment, but now that it's here, it feels like standing in still water before a wave. The drive to campus takes 20 minutes. The city hums around us, early sunlight glinting off car roofs and wet pavement. I watch the familiar streets pass by: the corner diner, the stone bridge near the river, the bookstore with its cracked window still unrepaired. Every place holds a version of me I had to outgrow. Tyler reaches over at a stoplight, his thumb brushing against my hand. "Whatever happens out there," he says, "remember, you've already won." At the auditorium, the air buzzes with excitement and perfume. Students in caps and gowns cluster together, trading jokes, adjusting tassels, snapping photos that will gather dust in drawers years from now. I spot Dr. Williams near the stage, her robe pressed, and her eyes shining with quiet pride. Beside her stands Harold Jensen, our first investor, talking with two executives from EduTech. Their suits catch the light, crisp and deliberate. When Dr. Williams sees me, she opens her arms. "You made it," she says. "You didn't just finish, you changed the game. My parents are across the lawn, easy to find, even in the crowd. My mother's floral dress flashes bright against the sea of black gowns. My father wears the same navy blazer he's worn to every important event, the fabric stretched a little tight around his shoulders. Malene stands between them, radiant in her own cap and gown. A hired photographer hovers nearby, positioning them for pictures. My mother waves when she notices me. "Lauren, come take a few photos before it starts." The photographer arranges us in different combinations, his cheerful tone barely cutting through the noise of the crowd. My parents lean toward Malene, every time their smiles wide and sure. When it's my turn, the photographer spends less than a minute adjusting the angle, then nods quickly. "Got it." My father glances at his watch. "We should find our seats," he says. I step closer. "There are some people I'd like you to meet first." My mother hesitates, but I'm already leading them toward where Dr. Williams and Tyler stand, talking with the investors. The introductions are polite, brief. My father's handshake is firm but uncertain, his eyes flicking from name tags to faces as if trying to measure importance. Dr. Williams fills the silence with grace. "Lauren has been an exceptional student," she says. "What she's built will have a lasting impact." My mother smiles politely, the kind of smile meant for acquaintances, not pride. "We're glad she finished strong," she says, her tone light. The ceremony begins under the steady rhythm of applause. The business school graduates are first. I sit near the front, heart hammering, as the dean steps to the podium. Speeches about perseverance and innovation fill the hall, but I barely hear them. The lights glimmer across the rows of students, and somewhere behind me, my parents are watching, unaware of what's coming. When the dean begins announcing the special awards, the air changes. "This year," he says, "our Entrepreneurial Excellence Award, our highest honor, goes to a student whose innovation has already transformed how we think about education." He pauses, letting the words hang. Lauren Adams, founder and CEO of Study Connect. For a moment, the sound of applause feels distant, like I'm hearing it underwater. I rise from my seat, walk toward the stage, and the spotlight follows. My photo appears on the screen above next to the Study Connect logo. The dean continues, his voice proud and measured. "In just 1 year, Miss Adams built a company valued at over $3 million, connecting thousands of students across 15 universities. As I accept the glass award, the light catches in it like fire." From the stage, I scan the audience until I find my parents. My mother's hand covers her mouth. My father sits perfectly still, eyes fixed on me, his program fallen to the floor. Malene claps slow at first, then faster, her expression a mixture of pride and disbelief. The dean invites me to say a few words. I step up to the microphone, the award cool in my hand. "Thank you." I begin, my voice steady. Study Connect was born out of necessity. While working 3 jobs to pay for my own education, I realized how many students couldn't afford help, and how many others had the skills to give it. I glanced toward Dr. Williams, then toward Tyler. This platform exists because people believed in me when it mattered most, mentors who taught, friends who listened, partners who shared the work. I pause, letting silence fill the space where my parents' names might have been. To them, I owe everything. Applause swells again, echoing through the hall. I step back to my seat, heart light and strangely calm. When the dean calls my name a second time for my degree, I walk the stage again, summa cum laude. The weight of the cords around my neck feels less like pressure now and more like proof. Later, as the final remarks fade, the university president steps to the podium holding a small sheet of paper. Before we conclude, he says we have breaking news worth celebrating. His smile deepens. EduTech Innovations has officially completed the acquisition of Study Connect for $3.5 million, with Lauren Adams joining their executive leadership team. The crowd gasps. then breaks into applause again. The large screen flashes the announcement, my signature on the contract visible beneath the company's logo. When the ceremony ends, families pour into the sunlight outside, laughter and congratulations mixing in the warm air. My classmates surround me, offering hugs and photos. Reporters from the university press ask for comments. I smile, thank them, and spot my parents standing at the edge of the crowd. My mother's face is pale but composed. My father looks dazed, still gripping his folded program. When I finally reach them, my mother steps forward first. "Lauren," she says softly, "this is incredible. Why didn't you tell us?" My father finds his voice next, his tone filled with stunned pride. $3.5 million. My daughter, the CEO. We have to celebrate this. I shake my head gently. Thank you, but I already have plans with my team. My mother's eyes widen. But we're your parents. We should be part of this day. I meet her gaze, calm but unflinching. You had years to be part of my journey. You chose not to invest in me. Remember. The words land like a stone dropped into still water, quiet, final. My father flinches, guilt passing across his face. "We always believed you'd make it," he says. "We just thought you could do it on your own." "And I did," I reply softly. "Without you, which means this success belongs to me and to the people who stood beside me when I needed help." My voice doesn't rise. It doesn't need to. Malene steps forward, then her eyes bright with something that looks like understanding. "I'm proud of you," she whispers. "And I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I nod, pulling her into a brief hug. "It was never your fault." The rest of the day moves in slow motion, the sound of cameras clicking, the feel of sunlight warming the back of my neck. The taste of freedom, like metal and honey. As I walk away toward the group waiting for me, Dr. Williams, Tyler, Harold, my team. The applause from the crowd blurs into a distant hum. My parents remain behind, two figures in the middle of the celebration, surrounded by noise, yet suddenly very small. By evening, the city glows gold against the water. My team gathers at a rooftop cafe overlooking the skyline. We toast with glasses of lemonade and laughter that feels earned. Tyler wraps an arm around my shoulders, whispering, "You did it." The wind lifts my hair, carrying the scent of salt in summer. Below, Boston hums alive with stories beginning and ending all at once. Later, when I'm finally alone again, I stand by the window of my apartment. The award rests on the shelf beside my laptop, catching reflections of the city lights. I think of that dinner years ago, the words that cut deeper than they knew. "She deserves it, but you do not." Tonight, the silence carries a different weight. It's not emptiness anymore. It's peace. Outside, the streetlights flicker on, one by one. Somewhere in the distance, a train horn drifts through the night, low and steady. I breathe in the quiet and let it settle in my chest. The world has turned, and for once, it's turned in my favor. I close my eyes and let the moment stay just long enough to remember where I came from and what it cost to stand here now. The night after the ceremony, Boston sleeps beneath a soft drizzle. I leave the window cracked open, letting the sound of rain fill the quiet corners of my apartment. The glass award catches bits of streetlight, scattering them across the floor in pale reflections. For the first time in years, I don't feel the need to be anywhere but here. The city outside hums faintly, but inside, there's only stillness, the kind that feels like exhaling after a long climb. In the weeks that follow, the pace of life shifts. I move into a small condo in San Francisco, high above the bay, where the evenings glow gold through floor-to-ceiling windows. EduTech's office is just a short walk away. My days fill with meetings, product launches, and the kind of validation I once dreamed might fix everything. But peace doesn't arrive with headlines or paychecks. It comes quietly in the steadiness of morning routines, in the sound of Tyler grinding coffee, in the way light spills across the kitchen counter. He joins me on the West Coast, settling easily into the rhythm of shared days. We work hard, but we protect our evenings. Some nights, we walk down to the pier, the scent of salt water carried by the wind, talking about nothing in particular. He never treats me like a success story, just a person still learning how to rest. That's the gift I didn't know I needed. A few months later, my parents call. My mother's voice is careful, almost formal, asking if I'd like to visit Boston for Thanksgiving. I pause long enough to feel the ache of old habits, the urge to say yes out of obligation, the instinct to protect their comfort. But something steadier answers instead. I'll come, I tell her, but only if we can talk honestly this time. There's silence on the other end, then a quiet. We'd like that. When Tyler and I land in Boston, the air is crisp and familiar, smelling faintly of wood smoke. The house looks smaller than I remember. My mother meets us at the door with a nervous smile, her hair silvering at the edges. My father stands behind her shoulders, less square eyes, gentler. The kitchen feels the same warm, cluttered alive, with the smell of roasted turkey and cinnamon. But the tension that once filled every corner has thinned. We move carefully, at first circling conversation like a fragile vase. After dinner, while Malene and Tyler stack dishes, my parents and I remain at the table. My mother rests her hands on the edge of her plate, eyes down. "We made mistakes with you, Lauren," she says softly. "We thought we were teaching you strength. We didn't realize we were teaching you to live without us." My father's voice follows, roughened by regret. "When that investor spoke about your potential at graduation, I felt proud and ashamed. I should have been the first to see it." The words don't erase the years between us, but they open a window that had long been nailed shut. I listen the way I once wished they had. When it's my turn, my voice is calm. "What hurt most wasn't what you gave her. It's what you believed about me. That I didn't need love because I was capable." My father nods, blinking hard. "You're right. We confused independence with resilience." My mother reaches across the table, her hand trembling. "We can't undo it," she says, "but we can start better." I place my hand over hers. "Then let's start here." The next morning, the air outside smells of frost and pine. Malene walks with me down the quiet street, her scarf bright against the gray sky. "I've been teaching art to kids at a community center," she says. "Some of them remind me of you, how hard they try just to be noticed." She laughs softly. "I tell them talent is only half the story. Heart is the rest." I glance at her, the wind tugging her hair across her face. "You found your way," I tell her. "That's all that matters." She squeezes my arm. Maybe I finally learned from the right teacher. Years fold forward like gentle waves. Study. Connect grows under EduTech's umbrella, expanding to universities across the country. By 30, I've stepped into an executive role I once thought belonged to someone else's life. Yet I still return to Boston every fall, not out of duty, but choice. My parents age into quieter versions of themselves. My mother tends a small garden in the backyard. My father reads on the porch glasses sliding down his nose. We don't rewrite the past. We simply live beyond it. At 32, I start therapy again, this time, not to survive, but to understand. Dr. Caroline Fisher, a family trauma specialist, teaches me how to separate ambition from validation. Success isn't the opposite of pain, she tells me one afternoon. It's what you build once you stop chasing approval. I nod, letting the truth settle. For so long, I thought proving my worth would fill the hollow places. Now I know peace grows best where proving ends. 3 years later, I stand on the stage at Boston University once more, not as a student, but as a benefactor. The Adams Educational Equity Scholarship has its first recipients 5 students who remind me of every sleepless night I endured. Their faces glow under the soft lights as they tell their stories, one balancing 2 jobs, another raising a child while studying full-time. When it's my turn to speak, I look out across the auditorium at my parents seated in the second row beside Malene. Their expressions are quiet, tearful, human. Success should never depend on who someone's parents choose to believe in, I say. It should depend on effort, on character, on heart. This scholarship exists for those who keep going even when no one's watching. My voice wavers slightly at the end, but the audience stays silent for a beat before the applause rises long and warm. I see my mother wipe her eyes. My father clasps his hands, bowing his head slightly, not in shame anymore, but in respect. Afterward, outside beneath the dusk sky, Malene hugs me. "They're proud of you," she whispers. I glance toward our parents talking quietly with Dr. Williams, both of them older, softer. "I think they finally see me," I say. But more than that, I see them. As people, not just parents. Malene smiles, and we stand there for a moment, the air smelling faintly of rain on stone. By 35, life has settled into something beautifully ordinary. Tyler and I live in a craftsman-style home near the bay, the kind with creaking floors and sunlight that finds every corner. Weekends mean hiking trails, quiet dinners with friends, and long talks on the porch while fog rolls in from the coast. I still work with EduTech, but my favorite hours belong to mentoring students and visiting campuses where Study Connect continues to thrive. Sometimes when I walk past a mirror, I barely recognize the woman staring back. She's softer, steadier. The girl who once begged to be seen has learned the quieter power of choosing where to look. I no longer measure my worth in recognition or titles. I measure it in calm mornings, in laughter shared without fear, in knowing I no longer need permission to rest. On quiet nights, I still think about that dinner table, the place where everything changed. The memory doesn't sting the way it used to. It's simply a story I lived through, one that shaped me without defining me. The oak table still stands in my parents' house, polished smooth by time. When I visit my mother, places a vase of flowers in the center, the colors bright against the wood. Sometimes we sit there again, the 3 of us talking about nothing and everything. And for once, the silence between words feels like peace instead of absence. One evening, as the sun sets over the bay, Tyler lights a single candle on the porch. The air smells of salt and cedar, and the horizon fades into gold. I sit beside him, our hands linked loosely. The waves lap against the rocks below, steady and sure. For years, I chased closure like it was a destination. Now, I know it's simply the moment you stop needing to arrive. Some wounds don't fade because we forgive. They fade because we finally let go. If this story spoke to you, tell me where you're listening from, down in the comments. And if you've ever had to rebuild your peace after being overlooked, share your story below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories about quiet strength, second chances, and the kind of healing that lasts.